so I wasn't expecting crazy attendance. The agenda for today, some greetings from Drew, some celebrations, upcoming events, and then Randy Surratt's here from Cornerstone Inspections. Danielle and Kathy have birthdays. We've got some anniversary, Alex and Cindy. And look at all the cappers. This has been the most that we've seen. So May was a huge month for lots of agents. So, and I didn't know Matt Schumacher is like a nationally known PA like announcer. I don't know if you guys knew that, but that was a fun fact. I like saw him on an Instagram reel, like, and he's on the Lockstep team. So, this was something that I got really excited about yesterday. If you guys have any trips coming up, Southwest until the end of day today, if you guys are traveling from basically August 15th to December 14th, Terry, if you're going to Florida, it's like legit. Like I went and Lindsay and I had 3 trips planned, and I went back and rebooked a bunch of them, and got 25,000 Southwest points. So like EXP Con, we're going to iLearning or I Love Coaching Summit in Charleston, and it was awesome to like rebook that. EXP Con dates are here. There's a group of us going. I think I'm going the 3rd through the 5th. I put that on workplace chat. I'm not staying at Mandalay Bay. I'm staying at the Luxor, which is I got some free rooms because I have a night of, we won't talk about it too much with Lindsay, but it was a nice night.
What?
It was a nice enough night to get some free rooms, if you know what I'm saying. So, on the blackjack table.
Yeah, he won, yeah. I'm like, now I get up.
So,
I'm like,
but
where
this
is
is huge.
that?
So if you guys are like, whether it's work related or not, like I'm always looking for coupons, Droupons, whatever we call it. June 30th, that is a big day this year because everybody's license is expiring, and I know Rob and Lindsay and I and Mia, Terry needs to do it, Alex needs to do it, and it's IPLA or in.gov/PLA, and that will take you to the page, and you just type in renew your license and follow the prompts. And this is like the biggest thing for what we've been working on for us to roll out to you. Jackson and I have been working closely on it. So what I want you guys to do is type in on your phone dynastyplaybook.com, and these are gonna be resources that we have with the calendar, with the vendor list, with the roster, with the EXP Indiana. People are always asking, what's the broker number? Who's the DMB? Who should I call for this? Where do I find these EXP Indiana docs? Every single thing is gonna be in this Google, these Google Sheets that are created for this, and it's nice and concise, and they will lead to other Google Sheets. Then we're gonna take processes that maybe I've led a training or Austin Lipking led a training of how to go on vacation, how to run your business while on vacation, and have an archive and a library of things to go back to for agents that want to, continue to learn. So we're gonna add, that will definitely be something that we add, but this is gonna be a huge lifesaver, especially because things are kind of all over the place. And I would love any feedback from you guys once you start playing around with that, just how we can make it better. So, but there's just so much, hey, what's so-and-so's number? Who do we call for this? Who do we call from that? And everyone just goes to workplace, and they should just be able to go to the dynastyplaybook.com, and all the vendors are gonna be there, the whole calendar is gonna be there. the roster of all the different agents are gonna be there. I don't know if you can make it so the numbers are live, so if you click it from like an iPhone, it calls that number versus like you gotta copy and, do you know what I'm saying?
I'll look into that,
I don't know what that would be called, but that was something I was thinking about. So that, I would love feedback. We're just trying to make it, you know, better for everybody. The events for the state that are coming up, this month are listed up here at the top. We've got the Dynasty events, going on with we were talking about the Lockstep Zoom is now merged with the, Real Estate Business Growth Experts Zoom. Also called, I think, Grow Global Nation or something, you know, let's see what they called it. Grow Global Team, you guys are all a part of that. Next month's meeting will be here. No, it's Cornerstone's not doing next month. I don't know who's doing next month, that's an error, but I'll definitely, tell you about that. These are some dates to remember. This one's in Jeffersonville, so I doubt anyone's gonna go to that one. Alicia Smith is definitely all over me about get your people to register for this. I'm planning a Sagamore member guest, so I'm not gonna be there. And then, I don't know what this is gonna be yet, but this is just something like, kind of what KW does from a Red Day standpoint. It is our day to get back to the community. And now we've got Randy Surratt, and Randy, there is an iPad over there for the people at home that we will. Can you stand over there just so they can see you and get to know you and all the things?
Thank you for this, but.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even show the people at home. I'll do it. That's what we give for client gifts. If you open that box, it's a Moscow Mule set.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Rob's wife is very talented. So,
And she married him.
yeah.
And intelligent.
Yeah.
She was drugged.
I'll say that. So I am Randy Surratt with Cornerstone, if you don't know me, but I think I've seen everybody here at least once. So, your face was new.
I'm Jackson, I'm the office administrator.
I've been
Yeah.
emailing you.
Yeah.
I didn't put any slides together because I didn't know exactly what you guys wanted to talk about, but some newer trends or trends that are happening still, like the sewer camera inspections are every bit as popular as they've been. New construction is getting tougher. The builders are putting all kinds of constraints on us home inspectors. I know one for sure is only allowing one third-party inspection. So, you know, like normally we would do like a foundation, pre-drywall, and then a finish during the construction process. The builders are saying you can choose one to have an outside guy come in, but you can't do three. One builder flat out refused to let us on their property. A couple other builders have increased their insurance requirements to more than double what the license law requires us to have. So, you know, home inspectors are only gonna do what they have to, most home inspectors are only gonna do what they have to do, right? So they're requiring, and it's Arbor and their sister company, who's that?
Silvercorn.
Yeah. They're requiring $2 million of general liability, and the state only requires us to have $1 million. So like for my company, I have $1 million general liability policy, and then I have $1 million umbrella on top of that. So we qualify because I have $2 million, but most home inspectors don't carry $2 million worth of, you know, so just the builders are trying to keep inspectors out. And some of it I get, some of it were, you know, I would say where my industry is pointing out things that maybe they shouldn't be. But some of it, you know, like we go in, we find where they've broken something. We find broken trusses all the time in attics, where, you know, they pull a package up of trusses to the site, and it's on a roller trailer, and they release the rollers, and the truck just takes off, and the things go out like this, and go, well, when you take a truss and bend it like that, you start pulling gusset plates out, or you start breaking stuff. And then the constructors, they're paid to put things in place, so they don't care, they just start putting things in place and let somebody else deal with it. So And the problem with broken trusses is when you have a repair, used to be back in the day, you would just take a 2x4 and sister it on next to where the break is or whatever, and it's really not what you're supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be specified by an engineer, and the repairs are way bigger than what you think they should be because of the stresses that that member is supposed to be supporting. Or if gusset plates come out, same thing. So, I think your lunch is here.
Go get it. Yeah. Can you go to that?
So, you know, new construction's just being difficult these days for us, so, that's a big thing that's coming up. Sewer cameras, like I said, they're just more and more popular. People are just, don't wanna take that responsibility or that potential liability of buying a house that's got a $10,000 or $12,000 sewer issue. And we're finding a lot of issues, on the older homes, you sort of expected the broader stuff, but we're finding issues now, houses that were built in the 90s with PVC, where they've done a lot of heavy re-landscaping, and a landscape company comes in with those small bulldozers or dingoes, they're tracked vehicles, and they go right over where the sewer line is, they start crushing them. So we're finding where they've been crushed, some of the joints have come apart. Hey, Jared. So we've been telling people that we recommend sewer cameras from like 1980 and older, because that's when the transition from clay to PVC started. But these newer ones that people are having us do just because they want to know, they're willing to pay the $250 to know that there's not a sewer issue. I was surprised at how many PVC pipe issues we're coming up with. So, yeah, your clients may be, people are seeing it on the internet, so they may be asking you guys about that anyways. So.
Yeah, Rob's been, I feel like you've been getting a lot of sewer cams, even regardless of the year.
Yeah.
Not on new construction, but,
Like they always
I-
show there's something.
yeah.
Yeah, yes and no.
Like I remember Chase, I feel like Chase and them got one on the 1990s or something like that, just to double,
Yeah,
triple check
for
it.
peace of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And flip houses too, where we show up and there's a nice shiny PVC cap right outside the house, and we'll put it in there. We've done several where they dug up and they put in a new PVC pipe, but they never connected it. So it goes out a distance and just stops in the yard. Or they've connected it, like shoved it into the old pipe and it's not sealed, and they've broken apart and it's just not sealed. So, you know, flip houses is definitely something, I don't, any age, I would recommend doing a sewer cam on that, just because you just don't know what people are doing. We had one where the bathroom guys, when they tiled the bathroom, they dumped all their excess grout down the drain, and it went about 30 feet and then balled up. And so it blocked 60% of the pipe, so they had to dig, it was a $5,000 repair to dig down to that one spot, just to remove that section where the grout had settled. So, yeah, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens like that, so.
I remember Rex Brown, who's a Homerama builder, and nothing against him, he builds a great house, but one of my clients up at Sagamore did not want to do an inspection on a brand new house. He thought, hey, we go through a certain, to get that certificate of occupancy, there's a certain amount of inspections that the county, you know, has to recommends, and building code and whatnot. But you guys came in and you found a crack in the foundation in the crawl space that no one would have seen, and so I always tell that story to every new construction deal I have, you know, and they're like, we go over there every day. Well, have you been up on the roof? No, you probably haven't, you know. And then there's just like, have you looked in every one of the vents to see all the dust that probably needs to be swept? You know, it's just nice to hire these guys just, again, for peace of mind, and you can share that story with your clients, and, you know, it's a good one for Randy's company too, just to give that peace of mind.
One of the other things that we're finding with new construction is inadequate insulation thickness in the attic.
Mhm.
You know, you get up there and you see this big, thick, fluffy cloud of white insulation, like, oh, cool, it's all insulated. You know, it's supposed to be 14 inches deep, and we're finding it's only 10. So that reduces, you know, you've got an R factor that you're trying to get to of 40, which is what the code requires, and then they're only putting in 10 inches, it reduces it by, you know, 10 or 15. You're not getting the R factor that you paid for.
Yeah.
So, we don't rely, some of the insulators will put up those cardboard rulers, and they'll staple them to the trusses. It's a ruler, and then that's where they insulate to. We go to places that nobody's walked and then take a tape measure and measure down to the drywall to make sure that we're measuring everywhere. So, just had one up in Westfield where we went there 3 times. And all 3 times they were saying, yeah, we insulated it again. And then the 3rd time I put in my report, there's been no insulation added. I can still see the original footprints of my inspector from 4 weeks ago. They haven't added anything.
Yeah.
So, the other thing, new roofs, whether it's new construction or, you know, we've had some hail stuff in the last couple of years, people got new roofs. The code now requires drip edging on all new roofs. So if you have a 1977 house, had a hailstorm, they put a whole new roof on it, the new code requires drip edge all the way around. And we're finding that they're not doing that. There's also some requirements of how everything lines up with the gutter board and everything, and we're finding a lot of mistakes being made there. And a lot of times the only repairs is almost to tear off the whole roof. Because the roofer isn't gonna wanna come in and start tearing out pieces of it and then warranty that, right? So, we're finding a lot of that between the insulation and new construction and the improper drip edging and gutter connections on newly installed roofs, whether it's an older house or a new house. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
What's the timing look like for you when you guys are doing those inspections for new construction? Are the builders saying come, you know, when they're doing their final punch list, probably a week before, about that
Usually
time?
the day before.
Okay.
Because, you know, you think a week before, we've been to houses like they're supposed to close in 8 days and they don't
Yeah.
have any appliances installed
Got
yet,
it.
and some of the carpeting's not installed
Yeah.
yet, and the air conditioner's not installed yet. And then like this, you know, force of nature shows up with 40 people over 3 days, and the next thing you know, it's all done.
Yeah.
So we usually try to get there, like if you're doing your walkthrough at 3, we wanna be there at 9 that morning.
Okay.
Or if you're meeting them at 9, we wanna be there the afternoon before.
Okay.
Because any time before that, there's just so much more little punch stuff that gets done by the builder that
Yeah.
it just is not helpful. It actually makes things worse, because then your client's like, well, the house is crap, look at what the inspection report showed
Yeah.
up. So we try to be as close as we can to that walk, because that's as close as it's gonna be to when they're gonna see it. And then we're giving them apples to apples in comparison, so. For sure.
What percentage of the realtors order the inspection for their clients?
Not very many,
Okay.
5%, 7%.
I'm wondering if we should take that off our plate, or if we should continue to do it. Cause I know you're supposed to give them like a certain amount of, like a list of inspectors, but we just always do that for them, just because it's like,
You know, like, some of the bigger names, like, we do a lot of work with Carrie Holly.
yeah,
They schedule for their
Yeah.
clients. There's a lady in Carmel named Kim Bell, she sells some bigger houses, she's always calling for her clients. Most of Holly's team will also call for their clients.
got it.
So it just depends on what type of look you're looking for your company. As far as liability goes, it doesn't matter, whether you give them a list or whatever, you still gave them something.
Yeah.
You're still somewhat on the hook for providing information.
Yeah.
The old training was that we're not to do that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, so I always put you first on the list, I give them 3 first. I said, I don't tell them which one, but I kinda tell them, I know which one's.
Somebody told me once that, you know,
Like
there,
the best.
it was I think it was a Tucker agent, their manager was like, you have to give a list of 3. Okay, so the first one was Randy Surratt, Cornerstone Inspections, here's the office number, and then there were just 2 names. No numbers, no contact information. Well, who are they gonna call? So she's like, I gave them a list, but I want my people to call you, so this is how I do it, you know, and if you're gonna screw up, and Drew will tell you this, I stand behind my work, so, she wasn't too worried about it, but. And then I had another lady who's an old timer down in Greenwood, she was hilarious, she's like, oh, God damn, if I'm gonna let somebody else tell me who to send my clients to, I can send them to the title company,
Yeah.
to the mortgage company, but I can't give them an inspector. She had a few colorful words for that too, so. She was great, but, are you guys doing much EFS or stone inspection or houses? I haven't seen much that way with you guys. Good, that's easy. Insulated thermal seals, you guys having any issues with that at all? Does that come up a lot? Is it a contention at all?
Insulated, what is that?
The windows that have the failed seals between them, the fogginess between the
Yeah,
lines?
that happens a lot,
Yeah.
especially on renos.
Yeah.
So we try to not make a big deal out of that. We as Cornerstone, you find one window in a house that's got a fogginess or some moisture between it, it's what, $175 to $225 to fix, not huge. You know, if we find 6 or 8, that's gonna be a different story, but I know my industry is like, oh my God, there's a failed seal, don't buy the house.
Yeah.
So we try not to do that. I know Jared, with all the work that you do, you see a lot of different inspection reports, cause I know my brother said that you've talked to him about our industry.
Oh, yeah.
A lot about different inspectors pulling up different
It's crazy.
crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So we try to not do that, and I try to keep the guys, you know, in check, and we meet monthly to make sure we're consistent with our report writing, and, I mean, I got 8 individuals, so they're gonna write things similarly, but they're still individuals, they're gonna write things sort of different, so we just make sure they're within this box that we want them to be in, and not let them, go out, and then I think Rob knows this, we had sometimes body language and just little things that you say as an inspector, you come out of the attic, you're a little sweaty. There's a lot going on up there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's wrong?
Yeah.
We had that issue.
That was a real scenario.
So we had to do some
Chet,
backpedaling, and I had to do some training with that guy. It's like, don't do that. I mean, just come out and be factual and honest, and, you know, you scared the hell out of those people. Did you get that closed?
No, they backed out, they lost their earnest money, it was tough.
So
And
thanks for that.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just
I
being
mean,
real here, right? You guys, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough one, and I haven't spoke to them much since then. There was some contact, but it kind of trickled off, and then nothing, so.
That was the one.
It could have just been they have cold feet and they weren't ready to buy, but.
And that was like a first time meeting for them, right?
Yeah, first time, yeah, it was a weird, like, kind of, it was actually, Mia's listing, and she met them in an open house and basically referred it out, and I was
Okay.
like, okay, gonna handle it from them, so that was my first time meeting them as well. So it was a little bit of a perfect storm of a scenario, but something to learn from. Yeah, yeah.
You know, the point is that it happens, and I will tell you as the owner of the company, if you folks, like if Rob hadn't called and told me that, I would never have known to retrain my guy. So I'm never opposed to somebody calling me up and saying, hey, I just want you to know. Because if I don't know, I can't do anything about it. So, you know, I super appreciated that you pulled me aside, and we were actually here, weren't we?
Yeah.
And talked about it,
Yeah.
and I was like, I went back and got the information and pulled it up and sat Eric down and like, dude, you can't be doing this, because, and then I think I found out from somebody else, and I think, was it you that told me they've done that a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, just the facts, be Joe Friday, you know, nice, cordial and everything, tell them what they need to
I had it
know.
on tape too, and I was like, I'm not gonna, like, my seller, cause our sellers tape everything, so they're like, oh my gosh, the inspectors just said this, and.
Well, it's funny, I actually had a Cornerstone inspection on, and it was a nightmare, and the guy, I think he reversed it, and he was like, actually, like, nothing I wouldn't expect out of a 1920s house, but then it had like 57 pages, I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate you keeping a straight face, but this is actually worse than I anticipated.
So we try to put it, you know, the information out there in a way that they can digest it, and then sit down with you folks so you can really, you know, work through it. Hey, it's a 1920s house, it's typical stuff, but there's a lot here we gotta work through.
Mhm.
You know, I wanna put it back into your lap so that you are controlling it. I don't wanna say stuff
Right.
or have my guys do stuff like what happened to Rob,
Right.
where, you know, you send him to the frickin' moon and you can't bring him back.
Right.
You know, and I try to make sure my guys understand that, you know, sometimes you say a little thing, it's no big deal to you, but you say to somebody, a first-time home buyer who's might have a little bit of cold feet, and it's like, oh my God, you know, it's like somebody watching somebody's head get cut off the first time, you know, that would really freak a lot of people out. And we talk a lot about that too, it's like, you know, we see this stuff over and over and over again, so it's no big deal to us, it's just what it is, but you know, a buyer coming in, they've never seen it before, and then you start talking about it, and it's like, holy crap, what am I doing here? So,
We try to coach up the client and tell them, like, it is your job to find code defects. So I just did one with Sean, last Friday, and it was the 3210 chimney, did I say that right?
Yep.
And there's measurements of how high this chimney needs to be from the roof line so that smoke doesn't come into the house. Well, they have to call that out, but the client knows that the chimney's been like that since the beginning of it, since it was built, and there's not smoke coming into the house. There's no signs of that, but they have to legally say that, and so the code changes every year, and so they have to, although Sean may say, hey, you're buying a great house, he's still gonna pick it apart, and there's 45 different things on the summary pages. And I think if you coach your client up and walk them through that and say, your conversation with the inspector might be really, you might be feeling really good about it. I'm just letting you know, once you see it in writing, it's gonna be a roller coaster a little bit, and you're gonna be like, oh gosh. But if you coach them up at the beginning, they're gonna be like, oh, remember what Drew said? Let's just wait for the call, rather than freak out about it, so. And then like Sean's great, like I couldn't go to I went to the front end of the inspection, I couldn't stay for the whole time, then I call them, shoot them a text, and they're normally, when they're going from job to job, that's the best time to reach them, so.
and you like that chimney thing, like my house was built in '77, my chimney is too short,
Yeah.
for a wood burning fireplace, but I have gas logs installed.
Mhm.
So usually that conversation that we have, if you got gas logs, as long as you keep gas logs in there, gas logs only require 1 foot out of the roof.
Mhm.
But a wood burner requires 3 foot on the short side, 2 foot taller than anything within 10 feet. And if you ever take the gas logs out, you have a problem. If you keep the gas logs in, you probably will never have a problem.
Yeah.
And most people think, like, gosh, do I have to fix that? Do I have to like build the entire chimney up, brick and stone? And you don't. A lot of times just a decorative flue top will get you the height that you need without having to rebuild the chimney. So we're talking hundreds of dollars instead of thousands of dollars, but it's still a safety issue that we have to call out. So we try to explain all that during inspections as well. So this is a safety issue,
Yeah.
but there are ways to deal with it where it's not gonna be super expensive and still make it perfectly safe for your family, you and your family.
Do you know when they started building the roofs according to, taller, I guess, not the roofs, but the chimneys taller? What
When they
year?
required it,
Yeah, when they required.
so the
when
3
did they
foot,
start?
2 foot, 10 foot rule's been in place since I've been an inspector, and I'm in my 37th year.
Okay.
So, a long, long time ago. The CAVO 1 and 2 family dwelling code had it, and that was put in play, I wanna say in 82, 81, maybe even in 1980. And then there was a uniform building code before that also had it in there. So sometime, I'm gonna say after the 60s, sometime in the 70s, they started making sure that the chimneys were built high enough for wood burners.
Right.
Totally different scenario for gas fired appliances or gas fireplaces. So. What else do I have?
Alex, any questions for Randy?
Speaking of building codes, like what about like old, like smoke detectors or something simple like that? I know it's like minuscule, but like some codes from an older home that was built to code at the time and now it's flagged.
So like my house, built in 1977, required a smoke detector on each habitable floor, period. I have 3 smoke detectors in my 2-story basement house. Today's code requires a smoke detector in every bedroom, 1 within 10 feet of every bedroom door, 1 on each habitable floor, and they all have to be wired together, so if one goes off, they all go off. Well, that's impossible to do in my house without rewiring everything. So in our reports, we would put that down as a recommended safety improvement to the home. It's not a requirement because it was built to code when the house was built, but it would be something we would recommend. You can buy packages of smoke detectors in 3 and 5 packs that are Bluetooth to each other. So if one does go off, it sends a signal to the other ones to go off as well. So you can do that. That's the cheapest way of rectifying that thing. And you know, it depends on, like, if you're flipping a house and you're doing a lot of work. I don't know what the requirement is on that. If you're just paint and carpet and stuff like that, I don't think you have to bring that up. But if you touch that smoke detector, then you're starting to get into, well, I did something to it, so now I gotta make it to today's code. So, same thing in my house. I don't have GFIs in my bathrooms. I'm a home inspector, I don't have all the stuff that I call it.
You hypocrite.
But my house was, you know, when my house was built in '77, the requirement was, I have them in bathrooms. The bathrooms and exterior and garages were the only ones that were required by the code. So my kitchen outlets are not GFI protected, but they don't have to be because I've never changed them. They're still my wife doesn't mind the tan ones, and I haven't had to touch the outlets. But if I wanna, if she's like, oh, we're gonna do all this work and change the color, and I want the tan outlets now be white, I would have to put GFI outlets back in when I took the tan outlets out. You just can't swap color to color. But if they're still original, you can leave them that way. So I know some of my industry doesn't look at it that way. They call it out as a safety problem. They want it all fixed, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like
GFI
the
is,
scenario you just said, like if you have to rewire the entire smoke detectors or.
oh, that would be, yeah, because the new ones that use, like, that are hardwired in, they use a 4th wire to connect to each one to send the signal to go off. So, I mean, even though the ones I have in my house are electrically wired, I could not send the signal through the ground or the white wire to the other ones. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah, there's no way really easily to do it. So, the radio frequency or Bluetooth ones are the easiest to get around that, and they work. So,
One thing I ran into with, it was on a slab and it's a property that fell through, but there was no outlet in the island.
so yeah.
So if your clients ever have an issue with remodeling a house on a slab, they're not gonna be able to put an outlet in the island unless they jack the flooring up. And so basically the deal blew up because the client wanted an outlet at the island, and my guy's like, well, we'll just take out the island and then the code's fine, and then the deal blew up, and we ended up working with Jenny Jurek on it, so it worked out better. But just a fair warning there, that's an issue.
And that's
gotta
been in
be
the code
Down
forever
the
too.
history books there.
Yeah, and because the people that built the property didn't have an island in there, so they didn't put it in when they put the slab in.
Did it close yet? Or is
Yeah,
it-
we closed last week.
We just went and grabbed a report.
Let's talk, no, I'm kidding, I'm just curious, I was seeing if anything would spark my,
No,
train
you know,
of thought
for
here.
me, and like when I do these meetings, like I brought up the one with Rob, that we killed the deal and everything, you know, I just want you folks to know, we're human beings too, and we make mistakes and we try to rectify them.
Sure.
And, you know, we don't try to go in and muddle up your deals, and sometimes it happens, and that's why it's, you know, important to me that if something happens that you don't like, just give me a call, and if it's something I can rectify, I will rectify it, so. One of my guys can get into a backyard of a house in recently. That's gonna cost me some money.
Could not get into the backyard?
No, he could. He got distracted. He went outside to do the outside, and the gates to the 6-foot privacy fence were locked on both sides. And when he came back in, the sellers and the buyer pulled him in a different direction. And by the time they got done dealing with whatever they were dealing with, he'd already been outside, but he forgot that he hadn't been in the backyard. So I'm probably putting a patio door in for these people. Because the bottom of it was all rotted on the outside. If you just went out and stood and looked back, damn it, Carl. But you know, you gotta do stuff like that. I mean, when people make mistakes, and you know, we try to stand up to them as we
Maybe
can.
that's why the buyer should be at the inspection when the seller ordered it.
Actually, the seller shouldn't be there.
Oh,
Yeah.
That always, it's fun when they're like getting along and they're talking about this, that, and the other and
No,
everything,
it's
but then it does create a whole nother
Yeah.
level of chaos. Did you see this pretty painting I put up? It's the $10,000 addition to the house. Yeah.
Okay.
What else can I answer for you guys?
We have an issue at our house, this isn't maybe not an inspection, but a home maintenance question. We have a neighbor who just is always telling us things we need to be doing, unsolicited advice, and he said, our downspouts are buried.
It's always in
and-
me, and I'm like,
And
oh.
this fountain, like your gutter is just spitting water out somehow, because I don't think and I was like, well, I can't even see where the downspouts buried anymore. And it's on the side of our house, and his driveway is 4 feet from there, so he's like, my driveway's
He
sinking
also
because
goes,
of your,
his driveway's sinking
because of our water.
drainage.
Sounds like a
But-
fun
You should have
neighbor.
a clog in
Yeah.
there though.
You know, it's where Louis
It's
drinks
not.
all of her water. from.
Yeah, she does that though.
I mean,
The
not
back
unless it's carving out the ground underneath his driveway, it's
Yeah.
not gonna do that.
He's
But-
not doing anything, but he just notices everything.
So now we've got an issue with that, so we probably gotta call Ian or something
Dig up the
Yeah,
end
could
of
he
your
take a
downspout
camera to
extension.
They
it?
are nice people, they just have a lot of time on their hands, so like, they notice anything that's going wrong in our house, and we're like, there's something going wrong? Like, wow, we didn't notice. And so
Thank
we
God we
hear
have
about
such
it.
good neighbors like you.
Oh, man.
Well, that brings up a good point, like, can you, in like a sewer scope, can you take a camera to the gutter if it's buried?
Yes, it's not always 100%, but, yes, we did a big house that Matt McLaughlin had listed and sold, and there was 14 downspouts on this place. And they all were buried, and there was a claim for, a flood. And they said that, oh, we did all this stuff, raised the grade, we took all the downspouts out, it was a downspout issue, and the hire was like, we want all the downspouts checked. We were able to get into all of them, and 6 of the 14 were blocked.
Hmm.
So, yes, we can, not 100% of the time. It's kind of like sewer cams, you know, there are certain situations where we can't get into it. Yes, we've done that. That one we saved them, it costs a lot of money to get those downspouts extensions fixed.
Yeah.
Remind me, is the sewer scope separate from the inspection, an additional fee? Okay. How much are those usually running?
250.
Okay.
So sewer scope's 250, remind me what the home inspection, so home, termite, and radon?
So our home inspection
The
fee
package, I
runs about, our average fee runs between $385 to $400 for just the inspection. Termite's $65 with the inspection. Radon is $150 with the inspection. And then $250 for the sewer scope if you want that.
Do you remove toilets or do you have to call the plumber? You guys do.
As long as they're not caulked to the floor. But,
That's a good
or,
thing.
some of the older ones, the bolts are to the floor, so corroded they can't screw